What's going on YouTube? It's Ben, and in this video, I'm going to show you my workflow. So what's up guys, it's Ben Nader. Thanks so much for checking out my channel again, really appreciate it. I decided I'm going to be doing a lot more action-oriented videos. So what do I mean by that? Stuff like behind the scenes, showing you my actual processes and procedures and a lot of my actions that I take on a day-to-day basis. So you can kind of see an inside, behind the scenes type perspective of more of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis, kind of like a documentary style or more documentation type videos rather than anything. If you love what I do on my channel, or if you're brand new and you love to hear about recruiting and business, entrepreneurship, anything in between, I'd love to have you as a subscriber, so smash that sub button and let's get into the video. So in this particular video, I wanted to go over my daily workflow, which basically entails finding a brand new client, sourcing, recruiting, interviewing the candidate for that particular client, and eventually placing that candidate with the client in basically 5 steps that I'm going to go over here in a second. So essentially, if you were to copy this exact workflow, you would be copying exactly what I do on a day-to-day basis with my recruiting agency from a high-level perspective in essentially 5 steps. So the number one thing in my process that I start with is finding a new client, of course. But even more than that, it's also finding new platforms or places where these clients are hanging out. So a new database or some new website or some new way of sourcing new clients of some sort, that really is helpful in my process. For me personally, my bread and butter is usually skimming through Zoom info and finding a bunch of clients via searching through a bunch of filters. So maybe it'll be like manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, transportation, searching in one zip code, looking for a ton of different clients, and then doing a ton of cold email outreach to all those clients. The secondary method that I use in my client outreach would be LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which is totally clutch, and if you don't have it, definitely should get it. So basically there's a free trial to it as well, but you can find tons of decision makers at tons of different companies and use a Chrome extension like Lucia, Swordfish, or Linked Helper or something like that to actually find contact data for, you know, the C-suite person or the VP or the director or the senior manager, and then contact them through that. What's really, really important that a lot of people don't recognize about finding clients is proving out your model for finding clients. So you could search Indeed for who's hiring, and then you could go and try to contact all those companies and then see if they'll work with you, right? And if you find success with that, and you've actually made some placements by doing that, that means you've proven that model. That model works. You can keep doing that. For me personally, I use Zoom Info. I find a bunch of clients on there. They hire through me. I've proven that model, so I can repeat that model. Same thing with Sales Navigator, same thing with Facebook job groups, same thing with whatever. Some people prove out that they just use word of mouth and they're just continuing to do that. Like whatever method you use to find your new clients, just make sure you prove that model out. Don't keep doing random things all the time, just hoping something sticks to the wall. Prove a model that will actually work, and then repeat that model over and over and over so you can actually scale up. So for those purposes alone, I would highly recommend that you make sure you find a proven model, continue, rinse and repeat that model, and scale that model up. All right, so now let's say you've gone through step 1, which is basically finding the areas in which you're gonna find your clients. Then number 2, you're doing a ton of client outreach, and you've proven out your model. You're like, I'm finding clients on Sales Navigator. This is where they're at. I'm doing a ton of outreach on there. Cool, so after going through steps 1 and 2, you're on to step 3, is basically where you get an actual client to respond to you. So now a client's responded warmly. It's turned into a warm email conversation now, and we want to get them on the phone. We want to get an agreement signed. So how exactly do you go about getting an agreement signed with a client that's just responded to you? First and foremost, you never just sit there and email back and forth like a pen pal. That's a total waste of time, and those are the worst people to deal with. You've got to get them on the phone. Once you get a potential client on the phone with you, it's pretty much gravy. This is a really easy conversation to have. The talk track is super simple. It's basically small talk. hey, which roles are you looking to fill? How long have you been looking to fill them? Which roles have been the most challenging to fill? And what methods have you tried before? Yada, yada. Give me the job description. Can you email it over for me? And then you tell them your terms. Here's my fee percentage. Here's our guarantee terms, which means, if someone quits or gets fired within that time, we'll replace them. Let them know all the information they need, get the information that you need, pass all that along, and make sure that everyone's on the same page on that phone call. You don't want to do a second phone call. You want to get everything done right then and there, because at the end of this call, you want all agreed terms to be done. You want to be sending over a digital signed agreement at the end of this call. On that same phone call, if any negotiation is going to happen, it's going to happen on the phone call. It's not going to happen through email. That's really lame, really boring. It takes a lot of time. So if any negotiation is going to happen, it's going to happen right then and there. So you need to be crystal clear with your client about you have a 15% fee, you have a 30-day guarantee, and you have, 30-day net collect terms, right? So you tell them all these things right up front. Any negotiation should happen right then and there, and you should call out all that right on the phone before you sign that agreement, so there's no ifs, ands, or buts, or back and forths. Awesome. So let's say you've just got that signed agreement in your email. Perfect. Now it's time for you to actually start your search. So this is where I would begin in my workflow to actually place Indeed ads or Craigslist ads or maybe even LinkedIn ads. It really all depends on the position. Or you might actually begin headhunting, right? So let's say it's for some really rare breed of engineer or something. You might headhunt on LinkedIn Sales Navigator for that. So at any point, you begin doing that portion of the process at this point in the workflow. This is basically step 4. Hopefully, if you've done your work properly, you're going to send over maybe 5 or 6 potential candidates to your client. They're going to tell you they want to interview maybe 2 or 3 of those, maybe just 2, who knows. And hopefully they want to hire all of them. Hopefully maybe they want to hire 1 or 2 of them. You don't really know until they decide. So hopefully they'll hire somebody from what you send over so you can actually make a placement fee. But that's encompassing step number 4. That'll close it out, essentially getting them to actually sign off on hiring someone and letting you know a start date. So step number 5 is pretty much the final step in my workflow, and this is what I pretty much call the honeymoon phase. So all the work's been done, you put everything out there, they've decided to hire certain people. Now it's all just up to you to basically keep everything accountable. Setting up your invoicing, making sure that goes out on time, making sure it's paid on time, keeping in communication with your candidate, keeping in communication with your clients, making sure everything is basically gravy. Now some of you might be wondering, why did I mention keep in contact with the client, keep in contact with the candidate? Sometimes there can be issues on the client side or on the candidate side, and it's your job still, even though you're kind of out of the picture at this point, to play referee. For instance, let's say you get a call from your client and your client lets you know that, hey, Joe's not really doing his duties up to par. He's not performing. He's not giving me exactly what I want. You have to make a quick phone call to Joe and say, hey, Joe, I really need you to step your game up. Apparently there was, an issue. Maybe you need to kind of fix up a little portion of what you're doing at work. Just smooth things over, basically, because ultimately you don't want your candidate to get let go before your guarantee period. So as part of your workflow, you really need to make sure that you are playing referee and you're kind of smoothing everything over as it happens. The same exact thing goes with your candidates. So sometimes your candidates might connect with you and you connecting with them, and they might tell you, oh man, well, I wasn't really expecting to do this or that, or the hours are kind of long, or the commute, or this or that, whatever. But you need to kind of play guidance counselor and really just kind of talk them through those things. Let them know that, hey, you're going to get a raise in 3 months. They're going to want to move you up. They really like having you there. Speak the truth to them. Let them know what's going on and talk them through it. A job change is a big change for a lot of people, and sometimes people just need some hand holding. So that's your job ultimately, and in my workflow, I do a lot of this, right? So communicating with the clients and the candidates is crucial to your success. Bottom line, if you can save a candidate from quitting, or if you can save a client from firing a candidate before the guarantee period is up, you're gonna save yourself your commission. So literally, your money depends on it. So that in 5 steps is my typical workflow of getting a hire done or several hires done. Now, I know that seems like a lot because I've spoken it out, in words, but when you go through the cycle one time and get one hire through one new client, the next one is easier, the following one is easier, and the process just becomes like clockwork over time. So at full scale, I would be working with 4 or 5 other clients at the same time that I would be working with this particular client that I was walking you through just now, because you never want to have an empty pipeline. You always want to have a lot going on in your business, because ultimately if you're going to scale up and you're going to make a ton of money, you've got to have more than just one thing going on at one time. I definitely hope this video was helpful to you guys. If it was, please smash the like button down below. Subscribe, hit the alert button so you know every time I come out with a new video. I vlog every single day, so definitely be catching you guys tomorrow. Until then.